Hello and welcome to Weather of Earth's Atmosphere. In these few videos, you will be able to learn about the basic operations of weather that occur here on Earth and be able to predict weather that occurs in your area. And I encourage you to follow along with this video. The website listed below the video. The website contains many useful resources to help you gain more knowledge about weather. Before we get started in predicting weather, there's a few things that we need to talk about, one of which is air masses. Now, air masses are large bodies of air that have two unique characteristics to it. The first characteristic is moisture content of the air mass, and the second is where or what region did the air mass form under. So I'm going to make some charts to help us sort out that information. The first of which we're going to talk about is moisture content of an air mass. There can be two different moisture contents of air masses, high and low moisture contents. The first of which we're going to talk about is a high moisture air mass. A high moisture air mass typically occurs over large areas or bodies of water, such as an ocean or like a gulf, such as the Gulf of Mexico. A high moisture air mass is given the name of marine. Now, this marine air mass can be given the symbol of a lowercase m. The second category of moisture content is a low moisture content air mass. So a low moisture content air mass occurs over an area that doesn't contain a lot of water, such as land. Land doesn't have a whole lot of water over it. So if an air mass forms, let's say, in Arizona, it is a low moisture air mass. And the name we give this is a continental air mass. And the symbol for a continental air mass is a lowercase c. Now that takes care of the first characteristic of an air mass. Now let's talk about the second characteristic of an air mass. Once again, I'm going to create a chart that describes the location or areas an air mass can occur in. So follow along with me again. There can be three different locations or areas in which air masses originate from. The first of which is a tropic region, the second is a polar region, and the third is the Arctic region. Let's first talk about an air mass that occurs in a tropical region. So the location or name of air mass is a tropical or tropic. Now, think of a tropical environment. Think Florida, think Arizona, think Texas. These are all warm environments, and that reflects the temperature of a tropical air mass. So that's warm temperature. All right, so the symbol for a tropical air mass is simply a capital T. Now the second category of where an air mass can occur is a polar region. Now a polar region involves much cooler air, so the temperature of this air mass is cool. And the symbol for a polar air mass is a capital P. Now, polar air masses typically occur in the northern part of the United States and the southern part of Canada. Now, the final category that we have to talk about in the location of air masses is an Arctic region air mass. So, as you can probably imply, an Arctic region air mass contains very cold, frigid air. So the temperature of an Arctic air mass is cold. Now the symbol for an Arctic air mass is a capital A. Now, Arctic air masses typically occur in the Arctic region. So think North and South Pole, they occur around the Arctic Circle. Now, we can take these two things that we've just learned and classify or name air masses. So what I'm going to have you do next is get out the picture of North America. I'm going to put one on board. So while I do that, I encourage you to get your own picture of North America or use the website. All right, so I have up here my map of North America. Now, we are going to name certain air masses that occur around North America. The first air mass in which I'm going to name is located in the Pacific Ocean, and it's around the area of Seattle, Washington, and you have Oregon in there, and all that stuff. So remember, an air mass is classified by two things. The first of which is the moisture content of the air mass, and the second of which is where did the air mass, or what location did the air mass occur at. So the first question we need to ask ourselves here is this a high or low moisture content area? Remember, it's out in the ocean, so it's going to be a high moisture content area, which is given the symbol N. Now the second question we have to ask ourselves is what location or what region does this air mass occur in? And remember, the northern part of the United States is a polar region. So we give a capital P for the next letter here of this air mass. So this air mass located in the northwestern part of the United States is a marine polar air mass, or MP for short. Now let's look at another air mass. This air mass occurs around the area of Arizona. So once again, the first thing we need to ask ourselves is this a high or low moisture content air mass? And it occurs on land, so it is a low moisture content air mass. And a low moisture content air mass is given a lowercase c. Now the second question we need to ask ourselves is what location or what region did the air mass originate from? And this air mass originated in a warm environment, so we give a capital T to this air mass. This air mass is known as a continental tropic air mass, or CT for short. The next air mass occurs in the Gulf of Mexico here. Alright, so once again, the first question we need to ask ourselves, is this a high or low moisture content air mass? And it occurs in the Gulf, so it is a high moisture content air mass. So we give that a lowercase n for our first letter. The second thing we need to ask ourselves is what location or what region does the air mass occur in? And since, remember, it occurs in a warm environment, Florida, Texas, Arizona, warm environment, it is considered a tropic air mass. So the second letter is a capital T. Now this air mass is called a marine tropic air mass, or MT for short. Now, the next air mass is going to occur, or can occur, along the U.S.-Canadian border. That's where it's happening or originating. So once again, the first thing we need to ask ourselves, what is the moisture content of this air mass? High or low? Well, it occurs on land, so it's low. So we give a lowercase c as our first letter here. The second thing we need to ask ourselves is what region or what location did the air mass occur in? And since it occurred along the U.S.-Canadian border, that is considered a polar region. So this is a continental polar, or CP, air mass. The fifth air mass that we're going to look at, and the final one in this video, occurs right up in here. Now, this is right around the region of an Arctic area. The first thing we need to ask ourselves is this a high or low moisture content area? And it is a low moisture content area. So we give a lowercase c. The next thing we need to ask ourselves is what region did this occur in? And I said it occurred in the Arctic region, so the region for this air mass is Arctic. We give a capital A for that. So this last air mass that we gave here is considered a continental Arctic, or CA, air mass. I hope you enjoyed this video on air masses and come back for some more videos to learn about weather averse atmosphere.